Hi everyone, welcome to Sandra's Bible Tales. Today I'm going to start with the book of Daniel. I'm going to do chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Daniel. Who is Daniel? Daniel is one of the wise men. He is from Judah. He reminds me a lot about Joseph. Why? Because unlike Joseph, he had God's favor with him. He was taken out from his people into a weird place that he didn't know, just like Joseph. He had the gift of dream interpretation, and God would speak through him to dreams and visions, like Joseph. And he was also promoted because of his honesty, his loyalty, and his God, just like Joseph. So there is this king, King Nebuchadnezzar, and he takes over Judah, and he subdues these young men, and he tells his people, I want you guys to train these young men, and I want you to teach them our language so that they can serve us. Now, the enemy will always look for youth. Why? Because they're easier to mold. The new generation is always the one that is in charge, basically. They're the ones that, like if you look at the generations now, the ones that govern, that have everything with the technology and everything, who are they? Generation X, Generation Y, the new generation. You're not going to see the baby boomers, starting new things because their time has passed. I mean, they have their own thing going on, right? I don't want to offend anyone. I'm just being realistic. Youth is always what the enemy is after, because the youth is always going to be the next generation. So we see here that the enemy goes after the youth, and he tells his eunuchs, I want you guys to feed them our food. I want you guys to teach us our language. And Daniel tells the eunuch, please. He says, I do not want, well, he doesn't tell him, I don't want to be contaminated or corrupted with the food. But he doesn't want to be contaminated. So he says to the eunuch, please give us water and vegetables. And the eunuch says, look, I can't do that. The Bible says that God gave the eunuch favor. He gave Daniel favor with the eunuch. So the eunuch liked Daniel. For whatever reason, he liked him because God had given him favor with him. So when he asked this, it's not like he's like, no, who do you think you are? No, he was like, no, I would like to, but you're putting my life in danger. Because when the king sees that you guys are skinnier and sadder than all the other young boys, they're going to know that I'm not feeding you, and they're going to kill me. And Daniel says, let's do something. Let's test it out for 10 days. Give us just vegetables and water. And then after, you compare us to the other young men. So the eunuch does as Daniel suggests. And after 10 days, he sees that Daniel and his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are better looking and healthier looking than the other young men. So they remove the king's delicacies, and they feed Daniel and his 3 friends the vegetables and the water that they had suggested. Now, the king has a dream, and he's greatly troubled. And he asks for all the enchanters, for the divinators, for all these men to come, the sorcerers, to tell him the dream. And they say, okay, king, tell us your dream, and we'll tell you the interpretation. And the king says, no, you're going to tell me my dream. And then when you tell me the interpretation, I'm going to know it's true because you were able to tell me my dream. So they tell the king, what you're asking for is impossible. No king, no one has ever asked this. How are we supposed to know what you dreamt? And the king says, well, if you don't know the dream, then how do I know that you know the interpretation? I kind of think that the king himself didn't really know what he had dreamt. You know, when you have a dream and you know that it was important and you really want to remember it, but you're so troubled that you don't even know the dream, like you know bits and pieces of it. And if someone were to tell you, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I dreamt, but you're not really sure. I think that that's what the king was going through. So he was like, I need you guys to tell me my dream, and then I'll know that it's the interpretation. And they were like, no one can do this. Only gods can do that. And, the gods don't live in the humans, so no one is able to do what you're asking. So the king gets really upset, and he says, you know what? Then you guys are good for nothing. Kill them all. Like the king says, kill them all. So when one of these guys was going to go to kill Daniel, Daniel was very prudent and wise. So he says, why does the king want to kill us so fast? And they tell Daniel, oh, it's because this happened, and they were not able to tell the king's dream. And Daniel says, well, tell the king to give me time, and I'm going to tell him the dream. So Daniel goes and tells Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, look, this is what's up. I need you guys to pray. I need us to pray so that God can reveal us a dream. And it says that God revealed the dream to Daniel in a night vision, meaning through a dream. So God gave Daniel the same dream he gave to the king to Daniel, plus the interpretation. So the next morning, Daniel blesses God. And I want to read the blessing because it's so beautiful. Like the way he praises God. It's very, very, I like it. So I'm going to read it. It says, Daniel said, he says, my goodness. Daniel answered, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. So he blesses God, and he goes to the king and he says, King, God revealed your dream. This is what you dreamt. He goes, it was an image standing before you. It was a very terrible, frightening image. and it had a head of gold. It had the breast was of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. And he starts telling him the dream, and then he says what it represents is that you are the head, you are the gold. And it says, but after you will come another kingdom. And it says, and it will be inferior to you, it will be of silver. And then after that, it will be another kingdom, a third kingdom, which will be of bronze, which shall bear rule over the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. And you know how iron breaks to pieces and subdues all things, and like iron which crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And as you saw the feet and toes partly of clay and partly of iron, it will be two kingdoms that will be divided. And he starts telling him the interpretation. And it says that the king fell on his face and paid homage to Daniel, and said, as a great prophet of the highest God, and ordered that an offering and incense should be offered up to him in honor of his God. The king answered Daniel, of a truth, your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of secret mysteries, seeing that you could reveal this secret mystery. Then the king made Daniel great and gave him many great gifts, and he made him to rule over the whole province of Babylon and to the chief governor of all the wise men of Babylon. So the king said, your God is the God of all gods, because you did what everyone else could not do, that they said was impossible. Your God revealed the dream to me. That is exactly what I dreamt, and that is exactly what it means. And because of this, he promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts. So this is just chapter 1 and chapter 2. Daniel is a very great man of God. He served the king faithfully. He was never prideful or boastful like Satan. He never wanted to be greater than the king, even though he was a man of God and the king wasn't. But he understood that God put the king as an authority over him. So he served the king faithfully, and because of it, he made a nation to serve God. Even the king served God himself. So I hope you enjoyed Sandra's Bible Tales. I'll continue next time with chapter 3 and some more. Thanks for watching.